Listeners, and welcome to the second season of the Adapt podcast, the podcast about how society adapts to the world's growing challenges. My name is Harish Murugesan, and I'm a current freshman at The Ohio State University, and I major in CSE. Now today, I have the honor to be joined by Mr. Callum Rhodes. Mr. Rhodes is a highly decorated management leader with mastering skills like technical recruiting. This is seen clearly in Mr. Rhodes' position as the head of motorsport at Pioneer Selection Limited and team leader of the motorsport branch at TXM Recruit. From graduating the Central Technology College of Grantham to the people and talent manager of Notpla, Mr. Rhodes is a skilled individual. Notpla is a company specializing in various types of disappearing packaging and biodegradable materials using many more unique materials. More on that later. So thank you again, Mr. Rhodes, for joining me today.
No, you're very welcome. That was quite the introduction. I'll try and do it some justice.
The only justice you could do it is just talking about this beautiful product. So before we get to Notpla, firstly, what was the steps that got you to the place you are at today? And essentially, what is your story of how you came here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got quite a, I suppose, quite a rogue career path. So I think it's quite interesting. You sort of mentioned graduated Central Technology. So that was essentially that was my high school. I'll try and use American idiom as much as I can on these things. So that was my high school. So I actually left high school at 16 with kind of just like my base level qualifications. So like what we'd refer to here as GCSEs, so sort of the equivalent to a high school diploma in the US. I didn't really know what I wanted to do in any way, shape, or form. I fell into recruitment at the age of 18 with Pioneer, as you mentioned. We then went and we set up this motorsport division, and we set up kind of taking the expertise we already had in sort of technical and engineering recruitment marketplaces, particularly within kind of automotive and this manufacturing environment, and we took it into motorsport there. So I did 5-6 years with Pioneer, and built it up into a relatively successful business unit there. Joined TXM to I suppose expand my opportunities in the space. They were a bigger business, had some slightly larger contracts. Got to the point where I was working with the majority of the Formula One teams on the grid, working with a lot of motorsport teams across the globe, hiring very skilled, very, very intelligent people. I suppose 2.5 years ago, I had a bit of a kind of moral epiphany, I suppose, not to sound too cliche. Realised that I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing. Wasn't really enjoying the industry. Motorsport was amazing. It's brilliant. I loved my time in it. I wouldn't change it, but I sort of realised actually I want to do something that maybe just matters a little bit more. I came across Notpla. I got the job here because I messaged Pierre, one of our co-founders, on LinkedIn, whilst I was in a supermarket. Because I was really annoyed at the fact that everything I was picking up was just coated in plastic and had, like I was picking up like cucumbers and tomatoes, and I was like, why is this covered in plastic? There must be a better way. And I messaged Pierre something to that kind of description, and his response was, well, why don't you come and have a chat with us? And 2.5 years later, we've gone from where we were. We've just gone through a Series A+ fundraise of £20 million. So yeah, that's a little bit about my journey so far. I suppose it's a bit of a rogue journey.
Yeah, I mean your position at Notpla essentially just started at a supermarket, which is really interesting and funny how spontaneous moments like that can, bring you to the place you are at today.
100%. It is it's strange how life works.
Yeah. going back to I think your previous work in motorsport, me personally, and I think if you ask a lot of my friends and family, I've been obsessed with cars ever since my childhood. And I grew up watching a lot of Formula One, a lot of Lewis Hamilton was always my favorite driver on the grid. So, what essentially brought you to kind of the Formula One recruiting side of things and the motorsport side of things? Was there a specific interest for you in that, or was it just a way for you to practice your management skills?
Yeah, I suppose so. I love sport, like regardless of wheels or feet or hands. And Formula One, yeah, it's definitely something I've had an interest in from being quite young. My stepdad would sort of wake me up at sort of 3-4 o'clock in the morning so we could watch like the Brazilian Grand Prix and sort of the 90s and early noughties and stuff before they started putting these things to more sort of European centric times. And when I joined Pioneer, we were doing quite a lot in the sort of domestic automotive market, and it was just essentially something that we recognised there was a gap in the market for someone to go and do this in the motorsport and the Formula One space. There wasn't loads of consultancies working in that space, and there certainly weren't any that were really truly trying to specialise and sort of integrate themselves as much as they possibly could. So yeah, definitely born of personal interest, but also very much from a place of actually there's a very real gap in the market here for us to exploit, and that's what we went and did.
Yeah, totally. That was just a curious question on my part. Having such a deep interest in motorsport. So, but going back to Notpla, the innovation of today's episode. So, for the viewers at home, could you just tell us essentially what Notpla is as a company, and what are some of its basic ideas?
Yeah, of course. So, Notpla, at our core, we're a material science company. We are particularly trying to address the issue of single-use plastic packaging. And the way that we're trying to address that issue is that we've developed, we've created, and we are now manufacturing various alternatives, mainly derived from seaweed and other natural ingredients. The way that we maybe differ from a few of these other companies that are popping up, and there's quite a few companies now that sort of refer to themselves as creating bioplastics, as an example, is that what we create is truly biodegradable. It's truly home compostable. We don't chemically modify any of our products in any way, shape, or form. There's no petrochemical element to any of them. Everything that we do, our philosophy and our values are very much based around this concept of nature as our North Star. And what that means is that we believe the solutions are out there in nature, right? And that once we have used them as a solution, they should fully return to nature, not in the form of sort of like not in the form of things such as microplastics, but very genuinely they should return to nature. So that's essentially what we're doing. Is we are we've seen an issue, which is single-use plastic packaging. We have found a very, very natural solution to those things, and we are now trying our very best to put them out into the world.
Cool. And I like kind of the idea of using nature to kind of get rid of the damage we've done. And in my mind, I've kind of depicted this kind of circle of where we've utilized oil, gas, fossil fuels to produce harmful plastics and other greenhouse gases. But essentially, you're using the same nature materials to bring it back and kind of get rid of that. And I find that idea really interesting.
Yeah, so 100%. Sorry, just very funnily, plastic was actually invented in the same borough of London that we now base ourselves in as well. So you've almost kind of got there's not only the material,
look at that,
another geographical circularity to it, which is quite lovely.
Yeah, that's quite symbolistic, I guess, of what's going on Outpla. So, going back to Notpla, I remember you talked about meeting the co-founder Pierre, and essentially, how did he gain that idea of kind of reducing the amount of single-time use plastics? Because I remember you stated you were at the supermarket. So, was there any event for the founders that kind of triggered this massive company publishment?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'll speak to both Pierre and Rodrigo's journey actually. So, to start with Pierre, so Pierre is a packaging engineer by trade. He used to work for L'Oreal. His epiphany was very much, I am literally designing packaging for various home care products for L'Oreal. And he just had that moment of sort of almost doing the math in his mind and kind of going, I've created and been responsible for so much here, and I've put so much into the environment. And it was essentially a case of like, there must be something better. Like, essentially we're all as consumers, we are like the victims, right? In this, like we have no choice but to purchase these things in these various sort of single-use plastic packaging. And Pierre kind of recognized that actually whilst he was doing the work, he was like, right, okay, there's got to be a better way, and I can make a change. Rodrigo's actually an architect by training and by background, and he sort of started his sustainability journey via the architecture route. So he was doing an awful lot of work with sustainable materials, with renewable materials. He did an installation using plastic bottles to sort of build structures as part of his work as an architect. Pierre and Rodrigo then met at university after they both kind of had the sort of beginnings of careers, and sort of they met via a master's program. That master's program was framed around like environmentalism. They were set a challenge of essentially come up with a novel solution to a problem that was sort of deep rooted in both of their hearts. With this was the single-use plastic idea, and that is where our first product, the OHO, so the kind of edible water sphere that you'll see on our website. That's where that came from. Was from two friends who met on a master's program, were set a project, and it has done nothing but sort of grow from there.
Yeah. I know you just talked about the Is that how you pronounce it?
OHO.
OHO, sorry. While reading about this, I was curious as to kind of the other sort of products you guys had, and just for the viewers at home, could you tell us a little bit about kind of Notpla's range of products?
Yeah, of course. So OHO, as I already mentioned, so that's our solution for essentially like for fluids and for liquids. Works particularly well with water. Works very, very well for cocktails, things like that. For when for sort of after work hours. So that's kind of where we started. That was our Genesis product, and a lot of the technology that we now have, and a lot of the products that we now have, sort of they stem all from OHO and that kind of initial concept. So from there, we've diversified. We now have our sort of most developed product is our coated board. So when you go out and you get a takeaway, say you get a burger, it quite often comes in sort of like a cardboard box. What most people don't know is that cardboard is more often than not, it's layered with plastics, or with bioplastics such as like PLA, etc., which leads to, once it breaks down, leads to microplastics. We've developed a solution which is completely natural. So we've got a coating on the board, and that adds to the sort of oil resistance and water resistance of that cardboard. So that's our most manufactured product to these kind of takeaway cardboard coated film solutions. We've then got a few other products that are kind of going through like their development cycles at the moment. So we've got a rigid product, which we can injection mold, which without being too geeky, is incredibly exciting in the plastics world. If you can get something injection molding, you're you're in very good stead. And then we also got products such as our pipettes, which are really good for like single dose low water content fluids. Our flexible films, which is a replacement for the sort of plastic you get when you buy like rice or pasta, that horrible sort of flexible crinkly plastic that's impossible to recycle. So yeah, that's kind of where our product range is at the moment. It everything is aimed at I suppose addressing an issue within a very particular space. So yeah, just to give you a bit of an idea of the range that we've now grown to.
Yeah, and for the viewers at home, I'll put up some pictures of kind of the Oho and some of the other products that Notpla and Mr. Rhodes just talked about. So I'll put those up on the screen. And researching more of the Notpla and kind of the wide variety of products, I kind of found that a lot of your products or main ideas came from seaweed. So could you explain a little bit about how seaweed is helping the world adapt?
Yeah. So the first thing with seaweed, and I think this is the thing that always surprises people, it is in so many things. Seaweed or derivatives from seaweed are in so many products that you will have in your home. It ranges from being in like our food to our face creams. I checked the other day, it's in my dog's food. I don't know why, but it is. So we're already using a lot of seaweed across the world. It's an incredible crop. It grows at a rate of knots. It sequesters carbon, so it's carbon negative when you grow it. It doesn't. So when you grow it, because you're growing it at sea, you're not utilizing any. You're not using any agricultural land that is already filled to the brim, trying to feed the human population. It grows incredibly quickly. It sequesters carbon. It is genuinely an incredibly useful crop already in our world. And one of the things that you can take from it is you can take a few chemical compounds from it, which is what we do. And those compounds are really, really great in once you put them through a couple of processes at creating things that resemble to an incredible extent plastics and sort of have very similar properties to plastics. So as a crop, it's already everywhere. It has the potential to sequester carbon, which is amazing. It grows incredibly quickly. So it's actually a little bit surprising that it's not actually being utilized in more spaces. So yeah, it's in some ways it's a really, really different answer to a solution, but in other ways as well, like when you actually go through all the data, you're like, oh, this is quite obvious. Like we should be using more of this to sort of look at various solutions. So yeah, it's before I joined Notpla, seaweed was that gross stuff that touched your foot when you go to the beach. Now I'm a little tiny bit obsessed with it, to a point that my wife sort of refuses to go near the seaside with me anymore.
Ooh, it's a worrying obsession of seaweed, I guess you could say. I can relate to that actually. I remember going to the beach and I was like, "Oh, what's this slimy green materials?"
Yeah, absolutely. It is genuine. It's a miracle crop if there ever was one.
Yeah, I remember reading about seaweed and specifically corals that they're essentially one of the biggest lifelines of the ocean, and in recent times I've seen a lot of coral destruction and sea wildlife endangerment. And so I read that a lot of seaweed and coral were essentially a lifeline to the sea. So I guess I'm not too surprised that they're also very useful to us humans on land, right?
Definitely. And I suppose the other point as well is when you start to farm seaweed and you create these sort of floating kelp forests, right? And when the sort of small amount of the research that's been done around them is that you see this huge boom in biodiversity just because there's a bit of habitat that has been removed for for years. So yeah, it's 3 years ago, if you said I'd be sat here sort of reeling off my love of seaweed, I'd have laughed at you. But yes,
Yeah, it's a unique jump from motorsport to biology, right? Look at like that.
so yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Recently looking into the Notpla packaging, the Uhu was actually used during one of the recent marathons in London to provide competitors with energy gels. And so the runners were just able to pop the gels in their mouth and, eat the whole thing whole, and it just disappears. So is Notpla a product that you can look into implementing into more other sports in the future?
What I'd sort of say, watch this space. Is very much what we're sort of saying with the energy gel market. The energy gel market's huge, and it's an area as well where the current dosing systems are really damaging environmentally. It's a massive market globally. So yes, without giving away too much, watch this space.
Okay. You're just a little tease for the
Yes.
audience, right? Okay. When it comes to, I think, innovation or the implementation of an innovation like this, what are some of the biggest companies you work with? Because I remember looking into kind of Uhu working with orange juice companies and wine tasting companies. So what are some of the biggest companies that helped you bring Notpla to the place that it's at today?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And oddly enough, some of the biggest companies that we work with are some of the biggest companies that you've never heard of. They're kind of these background companies that are, for example, who cater to large like sporting stadiums, and they cater to all of the Premier League football teams. And they're companies that nobody's ever really heard of unless you're in the industry, right? But they're these huge billion-pound companies. And where we're really, really lucky is that because what we create is a genuine solution, and I think people very quickly buy into the values of the business. They buy into the mission of Notpla very quickly. We're really lucky that we've got some really amazing advocates for Notpla within these giant businesses. And quite often that's what it takes for you to sort of really get implemented with these massive large corporates. It's not necessarily about wooing hundreds of people across these businesses that are tens of thousands of people and multinational. It's quite often just about wooing one person who has the power to make some change internally. And we can sort of speak to that with relationships we have with people with businesses like Just Eat, Levy are the huge business that we work with in terms of sort of supplying stadia across the UK. I'm trying to sort of think of maybe some of the like bigger ones. Obviously, you've mentioned Lucozade, who we've worked with previously, and sort of various others. So yeah, the sort of list of businesses we've worked with sort of goes on. But I think the key message with these things is always less about like the name of like, oh, this company is really cool, or this company has like a really amazing brand. I think the really key message is that those things are really brilliant. It's quite often the names that maybe are less publicly obvious that are the really big wins for you. And actually the wins come from finding those people within those massive businesses who are willing to be an advocate for your technology and an advocate for your innovation. I think they're kind of the really key big messages that we always sort of put out there whenever we talk about these things.
Yeah, that's super interesting how, those small ties can get you to work with these large companies. So I find that super interesting.
It's amazing the way this world works, and you quite often you just need one person to sort of believe that you're a good thing, and it can take off from there.
Okay, and small little question before we start to wrap up is, I don't know if you're allowed to disclose this, but what are some of the future ideas that Notpla is looking to extend into?
Yeah, that's it's really interesting. So I suppose without going into too much detail, the the culture that we've really installed at Notpla is one of innovation and one of kind of that, without sounding too cliche, very much of this kind of entrepreneurial spirit that we've tried to foster with everyone here. So what might Notpla come up with next is a question that I don't know. It could be any number of things. You know, we're so. What I really love about Notpla at the moment is that we really allow people to follow their own ideas, right? So if someone from within the team goes, I think this might work, or I think there's an option here, or I think there's an idea here, our answer generally is go and find out. Like, go and come back to us and tell us if there's an idea. So we're always exploring different options. I think innovation is in our soul. So there will always be adaptations, and there'll always be new technologies coming from us. There'll always be new product ideas coming from us. I think as a business, though, generally what we're actually trying to do is we're trying to sort of really focus down on sort of exploiting what we have a bit more, and really sort of trying to push ourselves deeper and further into the markets that we're in currently. So yeah, we're at an interesting bypass at the moment where we are trying really hard. We're focusing down. We're pushing further. We're going further within the markets we're in. But fundamentally, like, you know, we are an innovation company, and there will be further things to come from us.
Yeah, innovation company is exactly what we like to hear here at that podcast. So, and sadly, we are coming to a close. So often during closing times of an episode, I like to ask a very similar last question to all my guests. And that is, what, in your opinion, is the next frontier of orientation? And the past frontier we are exploring of artificial intelligence and augmented reality. What do you personally think is that next step after this?
Yeah. It's an interesting question, right? I think the next step past us. So what we always say is that plastic has its place in the world, right? Just not as a single-use, single-dose system. It's not what it was designed for. It was designed to be durable and long-lasting. I think, and this is very personal, this won't be a Notpla opinion, I think where we're fishing at the moment is very much this single-use plastic. I think for me, what I'd love to see in the next innovation from that is almost kind of the next step of actually, like, can we create things that are truly biodegradable, truly home compostable, that are multi-purpose and are multi-use. They're there to last for a while for human usage. They're there to be durable, but actually one day they will truly break down, and they will sort of return to the earth. And I suppose that's like the natural next step is we're kind of we're working within this kind of like this low durability space, and this kind of space of, right, actually this is for something that's for a short time. I suppose like the next natural step, and one of the things that may be explored in the future is, you know, can we create things that are truly natural and truly durable as well for human use? So yeah, but I think that's probably the best answer I can come up with on the top of my head.
That's a perfect answer. And like, we haven't gotten, I think this is my 10th or 11th episode, and I still haven't gotten a similar answer from any of my guests. They're all very different. So I like hearing a lot of different answers to this question I like to finish off with. So thank you for that answer.
No, not a problem at all. I was hopefully it makes sense when we watch it back.
Yeah, it made sense to me, so it'll definitely make sense to my viewers. So sadly, we have ran out of time here on the show. So thank you again, Mr. Rhodes, for joining me here today.
No problem at all. Really love to speak, Harish, and yeah, anytime.
Sweet. And for the viewers at home, thank you again for tuning in, and more episodes will be coming soon. So thank you so much.